What do you think? Have you ever been in that situation where things seem to just be going according to plan? You mapped it out, you had a plan, you had the tools, you had the milestones, you had the different things you were going to do in order to set yourself up for success. And things are going, things are happening, things are flowing just like you expected. And then the unthinkable happens, right? You get off track. You fall off the horse, you go off the rails, you get off the reservation, whatever it is that the phrase that you use, but things stop moving in the direction you were expecting. And now you're not sure what to do. First of all, you don't know why it happened. But now that this happened, how do I get back there? How do I start over? How do I get back into that space? And that's what we're going to be talking about as we move through this episode today. Hey, this is Dr. Dwain Woode. If you're new to me, that's Wood with an E. The E stands for endocrinology. Here on the channel, I educate, I empower, and I encourage you to take charge of your health and your life, avoid complications, and go to the next level. And in this year, new year, new you. If you're new to me, go ahead and put new in the comments because I'd love to welcome you with a hand clap and some music and let you know that I am happy that you're here. If you do have questions as we move through the episode, go ahead and drop those in because I do want to get to those and answer those. Make sure you put a Q in front of it because I'll know that that's a question that I need to get to as I look through the comments that are there. Whatever platform you're on, we welcome you to the show. We welcome you to this episode, whether it's Twitch, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and then, of course, right here on YouTube. Thank you for joining us. Like we do, I've got right next to me my glucose monitors. And right below me, you'll see that is my Dexcom Clarity Report that we'll take a look at here in just a moment as we get into our discussion for this evening. You're asking yourself, I can see it, I can hear it, I see the wheels are turning. You're asking yourself, why are we doing what we're doing? And we'll get to that here in just a minute. Let's hop over and let's say hello to some of our community members that I see that are popping in. I see Juyeon out there. Juyeon said, hi, doctor. Hey, Juyeon, thank you for coming through. She says, great to see you again. And then Jennifer is saying, howdy all. If you don't see somebody out there that you expected to be here, go ahead and say hello to them and have them come over and join us. Once again, like I said, we have several platforms that we are streaming on right now. And you should be able to find us on any one of those and join the discussion. The art of starting over. That's what we're talking about. And so we're starting over from what? We're starting over from fasting. And I am just now 23 hours into this week's fast. We'll kind of walk through that, unpack that a little bit as we get into the show. So why are we doing what we're doing? That's a question that you're asking yourself. And what did I just stumble on, right? I am in the process of working through our New Year, New You journey. That's the journey that we've been on, the journey to reverse our diabetes, to improve our metabolic health, to get off of medication, to lose weight, to improve our cholesterol, our blood pressure, our fatty liver, our polycystic ovarian syndrome, all of those things folded into this space that we're in. I'm talking to adults with type 2 diabetes who want to reverse their diabetes. That's right, we're putting it in remission and we're moving off of medication. That's what we've been walking through. And as we've moved through that space, one of the tools that we've been using is the tool of fasting. That's right, fasting. And here on the show, here on the channel, we do 72-hour fast once a week. We've encouraged our community and we've challenged you to be able to work up to at least one 24-hour period once a week. Right? That's what we're doing. Here, we're doing 72 hours, and we've been walking through how do we fast successfully. So on our Dwain Woode MD live show, we've been walking through the path, the journey for New Year, New You. And then on our check-ins, we're saying, okay, what are the things that we need to know so that we can use this powerful tool to be able to make the changes that we need and to get the benefits that we're expecting, okay? And so you've caught me in one of those fasts. We do Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We do our fast, and you're catching me now as we're moving into that space. And we'll share with you what the blood sugars are, what's been going on, what my ketones are. By the way, if you think you know what my ketones are, go ahead and drop those in the chat. Go ahead and put your guess in right now as we are getting into the show. All right. And whenever we're doing anything, whenever we are trying to improve something, whenever we're trying to make a dent, we're trying to make a pivot or improve or change, we want to be able to evaluate. And our check-ins that we do, the check-in that I'm going to do here in a minute, is with the intention of looking at how the body's responding, how my mind is responding, my emotions, and making sure that I am setting myself up for success by addressing the issues that may come up in the fasting space. Okay, so we'll do that check-in here in just a minute. And we want to also make sure that you understand that you can fast. Oh, yeah. So we had a conversation today in our office, and I was pointing out to some of the folks that I was talking to that most people can fast for at least a 24-hour period. We don't recommend fasting for children, for breastfeeding mothers, people who are pregnant, people who've had eating disorders, people who are currently being treated for metabolic diseases where their doctor has said to them, okay, you can't fast. Okay. Now, all of this has to be done under the direction of a physician. We want to make sure that you are always checking in with your healthcare provider. But for most other people, fasting is something that you can do, and we can work our way up to a 24-hour period. So as you're listening, as we are going through this space, as you're hearing us talking about some of these various things, I want you to understand that this is not something that's for those other people. It's not something that is beyond your grasp. It's not something that you are incapable of doing. It actually is a very doable and a very powerful tool when you get into the space. This week we've had several conversations with people who are doing various types of fasts, whether it's an intermittent fasting, 1 meal a day, a 5 and 2, time restricted eating, or even people who have been doing extended fasts. And our extended fasts, of course, are those fasts that are 24 hours or longer. Okay, so those extended fasts, people are doing all of those, and people are getting amazing benefits. So I want you to understand that you can also be in that space, and you can use fasting as a way of improving your metabolic health. So let's go ahead and let's do our check-in. And there are 3 places where people tend to have issues when it comes to fasting, and in fact, when it comes to most things that we do in our lives, things that we want to change. And those 3 places are how we're doing physically, how we're doing mentally, and then, of course, how we are doing emotionally. Now, before I get there, let me hop back over and make a couple of comments. So coming into this week, I started a fast and did a 25, 27-hour fast on Monday. We're coming from Sunday into Monday. And then Monday into yesterday, I did another 24-hour fast. And then 24 roughly. And then here we are. So I broke the fast yesterday and restarted the fast last night. And so here we are now 23, 24 hours into this week's fast, or this phase of the fast, right? So we're now going to get into our fast in earnest as we do our 72-hour fast into the next couple of days. And so right now, that's where I am. So I've done a 24-ish hour fast a couple of times this week already, leading up to this, and now we are into our extended fast, okay? Or our longer extended fast, let me put it that way. All right, so how am I doing physically? So physically, I am well rested. And, that's a big issue. If you're not rested, then you can have different things or different symptoms in your body, headaches, visual changes, and so forth, lightheadedness, dizziness. So I am well rested this week. I did a good job, even as I was doing staying up late to do various projects that I'm working on, I did get good rest this week, and actually slept in a little later in a couple of days. Yes, my wife one day, she woke me up. She's like, "Hey, do you know what time it is?" And of course, I jumped up and got into the day. But yes, so did a good job of resting. When we don't rest well, we feel fatigue, and then coming into the fast, we feel the changes that go on in our metabolism more profoundly. Okay, so there are going to be changes that happen in the body. There are going to be changes that happen as the body's switching from using glycogen, using sugar sources, to using ketones. And if you are not well rested, then when that dip happens, and it will happen, that changeover, then you feel that more profoundly. And often people will say, okay, the fasting doesn't work. Well, it wasn't that the fasting didn't work. It's just that the preparation that we did, the rest that we're getting, was not adequate to buffer that switchover. Okay. Also, I'm not feeling lightheaded, dizzy, sweaty. Right. Those are symptoms that people will feel. Often, people feel those when they're on medications, and those medications have not been adjusted. Or people will feel those if they're not doing a good job of hydrating. So hydration is a big deal. You want to make sure that you are maintaining good hydration, because if the volume of blood in your body goes down, then your body has to compensate by speeding the heart rate up, and some other things that go on. And you can feel that, and people will say, okay, I'm feeling lightheaded, dizzy, sweaty. I'm feeling palpitations like my heart's racing or skipping a beat. But once again, that's because we're dehydrated or because we are not rested. And I'm not feeling any of those. Mentally, the mentation or the thought process often goes along with the energy, and it goes along with rest. And there have probably been times where you have not rested well and you feel a little foggy headed, you feel a little sluggish, a little slower than normal. Not that you're passing out and falling asleep, but you could tell that, okay, I need to get some rest. And for me right now, because I'm well rested, because I am excited about this time of year, right? So I get energy from that. My thought process is actually pretty good. I'm not feeling dull. I'm not feeling foggy headed. I'm not feeling as though I'm walking through a fog, or that I'm in a bubble, right? Those are all phrases that people use when they talk about how what their thought process is. And then, of course, emotionally, lots of things went on with me last week. If you remember, actually coming into this week, we had some bad news about a friend of ours yesterday, and so it's been a bit of it's been a rough week. Just this morning, I was talking to one of our friends and talking with my wife, and just making some comments about some things that are happening in our friend group, in our friend circle, and of course those kind of weigh on you. If you remember when. I think it was last week, as I got into my fast, because I was not dealing with some things that had come up emotionally, I ended up breaking the fast when I didn't intend to. Okay? And so emotionally right now I'm feeling good, but once again, as you're looking at the emotion, as you're thinking about how you're doing emotionally, you want to make sure that you are addressing those things that come up so that the emotions don't build, right? Whatever the emotion is, anger or frustration or sadness or depression, that it doesn't build, that you're dealing with it, and so it doesn't cause that issue that you will run into. Okay. All right. So now let's go ahead and let's take a look at blood sugars as we see on my continuous monitors. You'll see there on the screen, I've got my meters over here, which we'll take a look at in just a minute. And then right here is right there. That's my Freestyle Libre meter. So let's go ahead and take a look at that right now. And so Freestyle Libre says that my blood sugar right now is 103. You'll see that white squiggly line that kind of is going through the darker green section in the kind of mid lower part of the screen. That's my blood sugar. and we'll take a look and see what those numbers actually were when we look at the Dexcom. The Libre doesn't allow us to kind of scroll through and do that. So let's go ahead and take a look at that right now. Here's my Keto Mojo, and here is my blood sugar. Let's go ahead and make that look kind of like we did with the 12-hour view. If I put my finger on this, I could see what my blood sugars have been, and you'll see there straddling right around 100. And as we got further into, I shouldn't say further into, but as we moved backwards, so we were up at 200 there, and I'm going to make this a 24-hour period. And so as we were fasting. Let's see, this was yesterday, right? And so right there was when we broke the fast, we ate, and then that's the blood sugar went up and then started coming back down and where we were when we saw the 12-hour view, okay? And right now, blood sugar of 114. So we'll see what those numbers are doing as we move further into the fasting phase for this week. Now let's go ahead and let's take a look at what my monitors over here are showing. So I've got a Keto Mojo and a Contour, and let's get rid of that alarm. There we go. Oh, well, no. Come on, alarm. There we go. All right. Okay. For some reason, I can't get that to go off. So my Keto Mojo, which gives me blood sugar and also gives me ketones. And then my Contour, which gives me just blood sugar. Let's go ahead and get a Contour strip out. Let's get that one in there. And here I have a test strip for blood sugar, which is the brown one, and then this blue one that you see here is my test strip for the ketones. So I'm going to go ahead and open both of those. We're going to get, of course, this blood sugar one in first, because that's the one that we're going to test initially. And I'm still going to go ahead and open this guy because I want to have it ready and on the side so that when I'm ready to put it in, it's not an issue. Otherwise, I may have to give myself another finger stick. So we'll get that one over here. And then I already grabbed one of the Lancets out of my little tray here. I did not see. Okay, actually, yeah. Actually, I'm going to go back and I'm going to put this one back in and grab the other one that I'm a little partial to because it doesn't hurt as much. Let's get that over there. And this is really just a twist off. So just twist this, and you'll see there a needle. Hopefully you can. Let's see. Maybe you'll see. There you go. Okay. There you go. You see a needle. And so I just basically find a finger. I don't use a lancet or a lancing device, sorry. I don't use a lancing device. I just take this, I get a finger, and let's go ahead and I want to get a good spot because if I don't, I won't get a good drop of blood. So, ow, 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 and that did hurt. But let's see if I got a good drop. I think it's a good start. So you'll see, hopefully, this is enough. Well, let me get a little bit more to get this Keto Mojo going. And one of the things to remember is that different meters will require different amounts of blood to get started. And so 110 is what the Keto Mojo says. And the Contour says 117. And then, of course, right here, you'll see 114 for my Dexcom. So I'm going to go ahead and get another drop of blood. We'll get this guy out and get the ketones started. There we go. Okay, so we'll get that one going. And of course, as I normally do, I'm not going to show it to you quite yet because I want you to guess. And I think I saw someone put some guesses in already. But we'll come back to that here in just a minute. All right. And so let's go to our discussion. But before I get there, let me hop back over and see. Got some comments here. So Jion says, I've been just OMAD, so 1 meal a day is what the OMAD says so far. So far my best. Oh, right. So Jion, let me give you hand clap and some music there. Congratulations. And then of course Jennifer says, Jion, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yes, it is. And then Jennifer says she thinks that my ketones are going to be 0.8. And of course, Jion says thank you to Jennifer. All right, so let's hop over and let's take a look at, and let's have a discussion. So we're talking about starting over. And this idea of rebooting, resetting, I've heard a lot of people now talking about a cleanse in the new year, or a lot of times people will talk about cleansing in the new month, or they've been doing something and hey, I need to get back on track. All of those are phrases that people will use as they talk about things that they want to do, that they thought they were going to do, that they're not quite doing right now. And they say, okay, I'm going to get back on track. And starting over actually can be a bit challenging for some people. And lots of reasons why why it's difficult to get back on track. Okay. Now, we did a show where we talked about reasons that people get off track and why and how. Why is it so difficult to get back on track? And so we're going to talk about starting over. But just as a backdrop, people get off track because life happens. People get off track because life happens. And off track is really the phrase that indicates or signifies that there is a path that they thought they were going to be on, the path that they may have been on, and for some reason they are no longer on that path. Okay, so that's what off track means. It's the same idea when people talk about falling off the wagon or getting off the reservation or well, any of those phrases that we use. Now, if you've been following me for any length of time, you know that this idea of falling off is not one that I embrace. Okay? Because falling off seems to connotate, I shouldn't say it seems to, but it connotates that it was an accident, that it just happened, that I had no control over it. And it really gives a sense of powerlessness and hopelessness. Right? So I fell off. Well, it was an accident. I had no control over that. And because I fell off, there is no way, or I don't know how to get back on. Because it happened by accident, and I may get back on, and that might be by accident, or I may stay off, and that's by accident. What I prefer to think of is this idea that there are things that we will encounter in our lives, and then we will make decisions about how we interact with that thing. Let's take food, right? Because we're talking about diabetes here. So food, for example. So we didn't trip and eat the hamburger. We didn't trip and eat the hot dog. We didn't trip and eat the donut. We didn't trip and drink those 5 cans of soda, or eat the ice cream, or eat the cookie or the candy. Right? We didn't trip and the candy fell into our mouths. We made a decision. And I don't want to make this concept of making a decision be one of judgment or spanking you on the hand. But it is a place of empowerment, because the decision that we made was the decision that gives us the power. Now, we made a decision to eat a donut. We made a decision to eat the ice cream, or we made a decision to drink the soda, but we made the decision. And just like we made the decision to do that, we can make the decision to, quote unquote, get back on track. Okay. So I want that concept to be one of empowerment rather than one of chastisement or degrading or berating. It actually gives us power. So we made a decision to be where we are. If you've not heard my description of the chuck wagon versus the stagecoach, go back and watch that. I might have to pull that out of one of the videos and put that on its own so that people can go back and listen to that, because I think it is a powerful description of where we can go in our space to give ourselves power. Okay? All right. So what are some reasons? So those are reasons why people fall off. They fall off because life happens, because they become ill, because they get off of their schedule. We have people who, they're working a particular shift and things are going according to the way they want them to go because they've ordered their behavior, their life, their eating by that. And then they change shifts. And now it takes them some time to kind of get back into the flow because now they've got to order some things. Or there are people who've had illnesses that have come up, and those illnesses have caused their mind and their energies to be put into someplace else. And now they're looking and say, okay, I'm not where I wanted to be. Someone in the family became ill. There was a financial issue that happened. And those changes will cause people to get off of their plan. Holidays, birthdays, anniversaries, all times when there is a change, and those times will cause the falling off, as people use that phrase. Okay, so those are reasons why people will get off track. But we want to talk about let's talk about why people don't get back on track. And with that, we're going to see how we can adjust that. Okay, so why do people not get back on track? And there are lots of different reasons why this happens. One is what's called the perfectionist mindset. The perfectionist mindset. And the perfectionist mindset says that if I can't do it perfectly, I'm not going to do it at all. Right? If I can't do it the way I want it to be done, I'm not going to do it at all. If I can't fast for 36 hours, then I'm not fasting at all. If I can't have blood sugars that are 120 or less, if I have any spikes in my blood sugar, then I'm not going to do that. If I can't do it perfectly, I'm not going to do it at all. So people have that inertia of getting back on track. The inertia is inhibited, or especially the inertia is inhibited, but that hump, getting over that hump, is a bigger task because they're looking for perfection. They're looking to have everything perfectly before they do something. Now, this happens not just in our eating and getting back on our eating plan. It also happens in lots of different areas of our lives. If I can't save the $100 per week that I said I'm going to save, then I'm not going to save anything, even if I have $50. Well, it's not the 100, so I'm not going to do it. If I can't spend an hour exercising, then I'm not going to exercise because I plan to exercise an hour and I only have 20 minutes. If I can't cook every day or prep for every day for my meals, I'm not going to prep at all. Okay? And so people are looking for perfection, so the perfectionist mindset. The other reason, another reason why we don't get back on track is because a lot of people are suffering from guilt and shame. So Thanksgiving happened. They went to Thanksgiving and they told themselves that they weren't going to eat the peach cobbler, the pecan pie or pecan pie. They weren't going to eat the apple pie. They weren't going to eat the ice cream. They weren't going to eat the dressing or stuffing. But they went there and they ate it, and now they feel guilty about eating it, and they feel shame for eating it. And so in their heads, there's this battle that's going on. There's this shaming that's happening. And because there's a shaming, we tend to pacify. We tend to buffer with food. And if I did it, if I'm a bad person, I feel guilty about it, and it's hard for me now to get back on the treadmill. It's hard for me to get back on the fasting. It's hard for me to get back on the eating plan because I have all these feelings that are preventing me from doing that. Remember the HEAT model, right? The HEAT model: habits, emotions, access, and taste. The HEAT model says that the emotions that we have, guilt and shame, our emotions, the emotions that we have, if they are strong enough, then they're going to derail us from the things that we say we're going to do and the things we say we want to do. Okay. So another reason why people don't get back on track is because there's guilt and there's shame. Another reason is fear of failure. Right? I failed this time and I don't know what it's going to be like the next time. So rather than run the risk of trying to do it again and falling down again, falling off the wagon, getting off track, we say, yeah, I'm not going to do it at all. Now, that may not be a conscious decision. It may be a subconscious decision. It's something that our mind does. Remember the inner coach and the inner critic? The inner coach is like, yeah, let's do it. Come on, let's get back over there. And the inner critic is like, yeah, you're probably not going to be able to do it again. You don't succeed at stuff like this. You're no good at it. You have too much going on right now for you to be able to put energies into this. So it's not going to work for you. Right? Notice the inner critic. And so fear of that failure occurs, and so we don't try. It's kind of like having that little kid who is the perfect A student, I should say perfect student, who's an A student, and they're A student, and we continue to praise them for the A, not praising them for the effort that they did. It's like, man, I love the fact that you get an A. You are so awesome because you get an A. You are an amazing person because you get an A. You are so talented because you get an A. After a while, what happens is the child wants to always get A's because they want the praise. So they don't attempt anything where they may not get an A. Right? Notice what happened. So the A student now, because they're associating their personhood with the A, they don't want to do anything that's going to inhibit them getting an A. So even things that are beneficial to them, they don't try because they may not succeed at it. The same thing here. So because I am afraid that I'm not going to be able to fast for 24 hours, right? Then I'm not going to do it. It's almost kind of like that perfectionist idea, right? But I'm afraid that I'm going to fail, that I can't do it, that I'm inadequate to the task. And so rather than run the risk of failing, I'm just not going to do it. Okay? Another reason that people don't get back on track is because of a lack of a clear plan. Lack of a clear plan. So often we don't succeed, not because we don't have drive or vision or ambition or even know-how. We don't succeed because we don't have a clear plan. We don't have a process. So that getting back on track you should have a process to get back on track, because you're going to have life. Right? We just said life happens, right? So life will happen. And so when life happens and you're no longer on the path, what is the procedure for getting back there? And because we don't have a clear plan, then it's difficult to now institute the plan. One of the things that you hear me saying all the time, over and over and over in this space, as we're walking through the New Year, New You journey, as we're trying to be metabolically healthy and metabolically successful and metabolically flexible, is that in order for this to succeed, you have to train. It is not okay, I did it once and I got it. That doesn't happen. In fact, today in the office, I told several people that the first 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times that you attempt this new thing that you're working through, you're probably not going to succeed. And you will make incremental progress. But it's not going to be 100% the first time you do it. So having a plan to get back on track and understanding that when this happens, I just fall into the plan. I don't then have to create a plan, because if I've got to create a plan to get back on track, it takes me time to create a plan. And in my head, I'm in a spot where I'm not capable of doing that. I've got the guilt, I've got the fear of failure, I've got the shame that's happening. There's the perfectionist because I don't want to do it if it's not just right. But if I had a plan, I just fall right into the plan, and the plan takes me to where I need to be. Okay? So lack of a clear plan. The next reason why people don't get back on track is negative self-talk. Negative self-talk. This guy that's sitting on our shoulder, that inner critic. Yeah, you can't do this. This is not going to work for you. You remember the last time we tried this and it didn't do it? You remember how bad we felt? You remember how difficult that was? Do you remember what it was like those first several hours after you didn't eat anything? You got the headache and you felt lightheaded and dizzy? Yeah. So that negative self-talk that says that we are incapable of, we are inadequate to the task. And so we don't try it because there's this burden, right? There's this thing that's going on in us, and that derails us from moving back into the space where we know we need to be successful, right? So negative self-talk. And then loss of momentum is another one. So when you quote unquote fall off the wagon or get off track, the momentum that you had built, right, begins to slow. And a lot of times we are actually moving and making progress because of momentum. Because once you get into the fasting, for example, once you get into working on those blood sugars, once you get into the metabolic health, once you get into the exercise, after a while, it is just a matter of momentum, that the thing is just taking you on its own. Because you've done it so often, you've made it such a normal process for you that you almost don't have to think about it. So that when something happens, that's why when people their schedules get interrupted, right? Or they miss a day of going to the gym, then that next week is difficult because the momentum has been lost. Right? Now they've got to overcome the inertia of getting back there, or getting up in the morning again, or fasting again, or eating in a certain way again. Right? Another one is unrealistic expectations. That we expect, for example, to be able to, without doing any preparation, fast for 72 hours. And that doesn't work. Now, you may do that on a fluke one time, and you may be successful that time, but if you are approaching it in those ways, then it becomes very difficult, right? So unrealistic expectations. I expect to be able to fast for 5 days. Well, maybe you're not there. Or I can eat whatever I want during my eating window and then fast, and my weight's going to be perfect. No. So when we get off track, when we get off the rails, then we're looking at, this is what I was supposed to be doing. This is what it should have been. And I should never have had the opportunity, or I should never have had the occasion that now I'm struggling to get back on track, because I shouldn't have fallen off the wagon anyway. Yeah. Next reason that people don't get back on track is lack of support. Lack of support. Right? And you guys hear me paraphrasing this, putting my own words. If you want to go somewhere, go by yourself. But if you want to go far and go successfully, take people with you. Support. When I talk to folks about how to be successful, right? How do we change the amygdala hijack, right? That amygdala, that's the survival part of our brain that wants to run when we see a tiger. How do we get that to succumb to the prefrontal cortex that says, yes, you see a tiger, but the tiger is in a zoo, so you don't have to run, right? And so people are so they say, hey, we do this by we train, and you've heard me say that, and we have them in community. So community support is huge. So lack of support, so that when you have an issue, when you have an obstacle, when you may have fallen down, then the community helps to pick you up. They helps to move you back into the space of being successful. They pull you along, they hold you up, they allow you to lean on them, they allow you to cry on them. Right? Another reason is habitual patterns, right? So routine, habits. Remember the heat model? The heat model says that we do certain things or we eat a certain way because of triggers. Now, same thing here, because there is this pattern that has been built into us, that when we get off track, when we get off the rails, it's so easy to fall back into that pattern. And so when we fall back into the pattern, it takes time to kind of get back up. Right? Remember those patterns that we've developed over time? They're still there. There's still grooves in our thought process. There's this neuroplasticity that we've developed where we're connecting different neurons. The old neuron connections are still there. They're just not as strong. But if we get into the situation where we get off the rails and we lose inertia, we don't have support, we don't have that momentum, we have negative self-talk, then it's easy to just slip right back into that groove, that habit, that pattern. And now that's what takes us. Okay? And then overwhelming stress is the other reason we don't get back on track. Because the things that are going on in our lives are so strong, they are so powerful that it's difficult for us to get back there, get back on our plan. That's the whole idea behind the heat model. Those emotions, when those emotions get high enough, those emotions will negate the decisions that we've made. Okay? So then how do we start over? Remember, so that's what we're talking about. We're starting over. And look at this. I'm putting this list back up. So how do we start over? We start over by addressing those same things. We start over by understanding that things are not perfect. Now, it sounds simple. We started by saying things are not perfect, that life happens. You heard me when we started the top of the hour. That was what I said. That people get off track because life happens. And to start over, we have to understand that life happens. That is going to happen. That this is actually not the last time that you're going to be off track. It's happening again. But that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with me. It is that there are things that are going on in my life. There are hormones that are moving in my body. There are things that are happening that will push me in that direction. So we got to get rid of the perfectionist mindset, because we have to understand that life happens. The next, guilt and shame. We have to understand that the decision, and this is where the making a decision happens. Because if I made the decision to get off the stagecoach, to get off the car, get out of the car, to get off the plane, to eat the cookie, to have the dressing, I am making that decision. There is no guilt and there's no shame there, because I've committed. But when we don't make that decision, when we show up in a social event without any plan on what we're going to do, what we're going to eat, and we say, okay, we get there and something in that environment happens that now pushes a button and we get the trigger and we eat the thing. Now we feel guilty and we feel shameful. But I told you guys, like, we've had Thanksgiving a while back, that I was going to eat whatever's there for Thanksgiving. So I did my fast 3 days, or 1, 2, 3. I started my fast 2 days early, so that I can get my fast in, so that I can make the decision that on Thanksgiving I was going to eat the things that were there. So take the guilt and the shame out of it by making the decision. You're in charge. Fear and fear of failure. Fear of failure. And this is a big one. As we move into our new season, you'll hear me talking more and more and more about limitless living. So limitless living says that there's not anything outside of me or anything inside of me that's going to prevent me from doing what I need to do to be metabolically healthy. Now, this fear of failure is one of those things we've got to address. So we've got to be able to sit with that, and we've got to be able to pull that thing apart and look at it and dissect it and figure out, where does that come from? So that it is no longer one of those obstacles for me to not do what I need to do. Lack of a clear plan. Make a plan. Sounds simple, right? So get into a space with a coach, with a community, where you have a plan. It's like, okay, if I get off track, these are going to be the steps that I take to get there. Like when I broke my fast, my initial step is, okay, I started fast. When I went away on my trip with my guys, when on an anniversary, when we had Thanksgiving, right? Immediately after that, I started to fast, because my initial step as part of my plan is to get back into the mindset, into the space of fasting, so that I know I'm making a decision, a conscious decision, to set my body into a metabolic space to be healthy. Now, once I get back into the fast, then the other mindset things begin happening, because I'm in the space. That's the first thing on my plan. You have to come up with, what is the first thing on your plan? And perhaps we need to do a show where we actually walk through a plan, right? An actual plan of what are some steps that we can do. I've got all these shows in mind. Every time we talk, I have something that pops up in my mind, okay? Negative self-talk. So lack of a clear plan. So make a plan. Negative self-talk. This goes back to this idea of limitless living. Creating a positive space, enhancing, strengthening my inner coach, so that the inner critic becomes less and less and less and less powerful. That takes us being able to admit, face, seek help, get support. All of those things go with limitless living, because limitless living says that there's nothing that's going to prevent me from doing what I need to do to be metabolically healthy and to reverse my diabetes. Okay? So loss of momentum. Loss of momentum. And so the momentum that happens occurs, or the loss of momentum happens, is when we break the cycle. When something happens that pushes us out of our routine. And for this one, the same thing that we do here is the same thing that we do when we talk about the plan. Okay? Because you've lost momentum because something happens, your schedule gets off, somebody becomes ill. And so what is the initial step that you are going to do in your plan to get back where you need to be? Okay, so momentum and the clear plan, they fall into the same category. Okay, and then unrealistic expectations. This has to do with my mindset and my ability to really understand. So if I'm going to fast, and one of the things that we'll talk about as we do our fasting review one of the preparation steps is to research the type of fast that you're going to be doing. Are you going to be doing a 5 and 2, a 24-hour, or 48-hour? Are you going to be doing one meal a day, as Gian is doing? So what is going to be the thing that you're doing? And research it so that you have clear expectations. You have reasonable, realistic expectations. Otherwise, we create these things in our minds that are beyond what we should be expecting. Okay? Lack of support. Now, this one, you know where I'm going with this, right? Find a support group. Right? Set yourself up for success. Anticipate that this is going to happen and find a group where you can be a part of that group that supports you. Join a community. Join our community. Okay? And then understanding habitual patterns. Know where your triggers are. What are my trigger patterns? When we talk to people about smoking cessation and so forth, and we're walking them through the process, right? There are certain cues that happen all the time because that's part of the pattern. They get up in the morning, they drink coffee, they have a cigarette. Right? They eat, they have a muffin at the end of the meal, they have a cigarette. So now what we want to do is we want to change that behavior by instituting something else. So it's not a trigger. Right now, that thing is tied. The eating is tied to the trigger. And so anytime the trigger happens, the eating happens. Anytime the trigger happens, you get off track. Every time the trigger happens, you break your fast. Anytime the trigger happens, right? So they're so closely aligned with each other that there's almost no space between the two. You can't identify one without the other. They are a pair. And so what we want to do is we want to disassociate the behavior from that initial trigger or that pattern. And then overwhelming stress. Understanding that we've got to find ways of dealing with stress. We've got to get counseling. We've got to get coaching. We've got to deal with the situation. We've got to talk to the person who injured our feelings. Right? Earlier tonight, I had a conversation with my family. Right? And so as I'm having the conversation, there's this thing that's going on in my head, right? So emotions are building up, and I finally had to say to myself, and if they're watching, they know, at the end of the conversation, I got kind of quiet, and then I made a statement. So again, this is what I'm going to do, because I could not allow the stress to continue to build. And so, making a decision, I took that back. I took the power back from the emotion, because this is what I'm going to do. Now, it may be the right thing, maybe the wrong thing, but this is what I'm going to do. I'm making a decision. And so dealing with stress, right, wherever the space is that you've got to go to be able to learn how to manage that. That's what we do, because we're talking about how do we live limitlessly? How do we move into a limitless living space? And that's how we start over. Right? And how we move forward. So starting over, we're fasting and onward. We're not looking backwards, we're looking onward, looking into the future. What do we do to put ourselves in a space for being successful? Okay? Awesome. All right. Well, let's go ahead and I think I saw some comments. Well, I saw some comments out there. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we're saying. So Gian says, let's go down here. Gian says, I often get off track and end up binge eating with negative emotions. Yes, that is a very common thing. And as we're talking here, right, there's several things in there, Gian, that we need to piece out and parse, right? So the whole idea of binge eating, right? And binge eating comes from kind of almost a scarcity mentality or something that's going on that's pushing a button, right? And then understanding that things will happen. And so how do we now avoid having that negative emotion that comes along with it, right? So several things that are in there. You may need to pause this and go back and review it, and I shouldn't say and you may need to have a space where you are actually talking to a coach, talking to a counselor who can help you walk through and parse through some of that. And then Joanne says, Doctor, whenever I eat sweet things, it makes me want more food, maybe insulin. Let me eat right. Yes. So when we eat sweets, in order for the body to combat the sweets, it has to produce insulin. The insulin will cause you to be hungry. The sweet that you have itself will cause a certain taste. It will trigger a memory. It'll make you feel a certain way. And so all of those are things that we're fighting as we're dealing with food. Okay? So that's why sweets are not just sweet. They cause a cascade of hormonal changes and psychological issues that go on. Gian says, I love pecan pie. I can eat a whole pecan pie, but when I eat that after I feel, So same idea here as we're talking through the space of guilt and shame and binging. Okay? So guilt and shame, I always feel when I eat, yes. And so here is a decision, Gian, that we need to make, that we are taking control over the eating. Now, you may still eat, but you are making the choice to eat. It is not just happening to us. It is not just happening to you. Okay? So if I'm going to eat that apple pie, I am deciding to eat the apple pie. And just because because I'm deciding to eat the apple pie, at some time I can decide not to eat it because it's in my power. Okay? And that doesn't happen with one time. It takes training and practice and thinking and walking through the whole thing. Okay? Jennifer says, I have to not eat sweets or I can't stop. Any carbohydrate will cause me to be more hungry. So I stay away, at least I try to. Very good. Very good, Jennifer. Yes, so carbs. Carbs are not just calories. Carbs have certain signals that go with them, and those signals disrupt hormones. Insulin, for example. When insulin comes up, because you ate the carbs, then insulin dysregulates our satiety hormone. It dysregulates our hunger hormones. So there's all this stuff that goes on because of the carbohydrates. And Gian says, great, Jennifer. I think is commenting with the talking about the comment above. All right. So let's go ahead and let's hop over and let's take a look at my glucose numbers, and then we'll look at my ketones and go from there. Let's see. Of course, I've got to log back in because whenever I am talking, it logs out. We would need to talk less, right? Talk less. Okay, so here is my, let's see, why is this one showing up like that? Give me just a second here. Let's go back here. Okay. And let's see. For some reason, my app is not working properly. Let's get rid of this one. Okay. Give me just a second here, guys. Let's grab another screen. Let's try this. Okay, I think this one will work. All right. So here we are. So here is my this is my glucose, my Dexcom Clarity, and you'll see there on the screen that my average blood sugar is 154 right there. And let's see, I should be able to do a circle. There we go. All right, so 154 is my average blood sugar for over the last 14 days. I'm in target 68% of the time, target being anywhere from 70 to 180. My glucose management indicator, which is a surrogate for my A1C, is 7.0, right? So over the last week or so, you guys have kind of watched and seen me do some buffering over the course of this last week, right? So we talked about that, and that's what we're seeing right here in terms of what my blood sugars are. So look at the average of 154. If I go to 90 days, that should be about 135, 136. Yeah, so 135 exactly. So that's my average over the last 90 days. So over the last 2 weeks, my blood sugars have been higher than they have been previously, right? So remember the whole buffering issue that we talked about. So I'm in target 85% of the time, target being anywhere from 70 to 180, and my glucose management indicator, if I were to get an A1C, is 6.5. Okay, so it's an estimate of what my glucose would be if I were to get an A1C. If I look at the daily graphs, we'll see what's been going on over the last. This is today. So I started my fast. Well, I was fasting all yesterday and actually broke the fast right up in here. And so what you see now is going forward, right? Going into the next morning, which is today, we had those high blood sugars. And then as we've continued fasting, you'll see the blood sugars are going down. Okay, to where we are right now. Well, we're a little later than that, but you get the idea. So it'll be interesting to see what those numbers are as we move into tomorrow. Okay, and then let's hop over and let's take a look at my. I'm gonna take a look at my Keto Mojo because I want to see what my ketones are. Let's go ahead and get that one out and then pull up the Keto Mojo app, which will be right here, and go ahead and get that synced. And so we'll see what that come up here in just a minute. And I think Jennifer gave a guess, and she said 0.8 is what she thinks my ketones are going to be. And, oh, I got to turn it on. It was scanning, but it was not getting anything because it was not on. So here we are. And drum roll, please. So my ketones, so my glucose is 110. You'll see that there. And my ketones are 0.2. Right, so 0.2. So ketones that are less than 0.5 are considered normal. 0.5 to 1.5 considered nutritional ketosis, and above 1.5 considered therapeutic ketosis. We want our ketones, if we're talking about the metabolic space, we're talking about improving health, insulin resistance, losing weight, we want ketones to be 0.5 or higher. Because at that point, we know that the body is burning fat and converting it to ketones. If we take a look at the actual graphs, you'll see there, this was this was when I broke the fast. Let's see where we are here. Okay, here we go. There we go. So this is this week. And so when I broke the fast, notice that my ketones were up here at 1.4, blood sugar was down at 84. And as I started eating, this tan line got higher. So this is blood sugar 84, and then it got up to 90, and of course what it is now at 110. Similarly, the turquoise line, those are my ketones, and as the blood sugar has gone up, then the ketones have gone down. And so you'll see here ketones were 1.4, and then they dropped down here to 0.1, and then as I've started fasting for this time, then our ketones now are 0.2. Okay, so we want those to be 0.5 or higher in the metabolic space as we're talking about insulin sensitivity, weight improvement, ketosis, ketogenic, right? So that's where we want those numbers to be. Awesome. All right. Well, we are excited because we're moving through our New Year, New You process. We've got our community meetup that's coming up tomorrow at 7 p.m. Central. We go ahead and pop that link in the chat so that you can get there. If you've not already done so, make sure you sign up for that. It's going to be a great opportunity to see your faces and talk and do some coaching. And to really continue supporting each other in the space. So if you've not already done so, make sure you go ahead and sign up for the community meetup tomorrow, 7 p.m. Central, right here on Dwain Woode. Actually, no, it's on Zoom. So that's what the link is for Zoom. And we've got some exciting things to talk about as we talk about our community and as we move forward in that space. Remember that you have unlimited ability to make changes. You have unlimited potential to set yourself up for metabolic success. And that decision is your decision. You have the power to make that decision, and it is unlimited. We build on the platform of our Triple E formula for success. We educate, we empower, and we encourage. We educate with the podcast. We educate with the blogs and the what did I say? The show, podcast, blogs. We educate with that, and then we empower with the tools that we're learning, the places where you have opportunity to implement, to practice, to train on the various things that we're doing. Those are the challenges that we do. And then, of course, being able to get encouragement in the community that we are building, that you are a part of, that continues to grow as we move through the space. We educate, we empower, and we encourage. Remember, the HEAT model says that there are certain things that are going to push your buttons. And understanding what your triggers are helps you to put things in place that will help you become successful and help you not succumb to that. One of the models that we've used is the COPE model that says we clarify. Whenever we are getting ready to eat something, we're clarifying. Am I hungry, or did something happen that's pushing me to eat? We observe, where am I feeling it in my body? Am I tense because my shoulders are stiff? Am I anxious? My stomach is churning. Am I mad and angry or frustrated because I feel my ears are hot? Right? So those are all things that you can feel in your body, and you could identify where it is and give a name to it. When you name what you're feeling, then you're able to take more control over it. So we clarify, we observe and name, we pause. When we're doing that process, we're pausing and allowing our prefrontal cortex to come over and modulate the amygdala, which wants to go eat, which wants to go buffer. But the prefrontal cortex says, no, we don't have to do that, because we can sit in this space right now and we can be successful without buffering. We can cope with this issue. Yes. Okay, so understanding that, the HEAT model. We eat because of habits, emotions, access, and taste. So the COPE model says once we have paused and we understand what's going on, then we execute by picking something else other than the buffering behavior. We pick something else. We go for a walk instead of eating the cookie. We call a friend, or we call our counselor. We call our sponsor instead of doing whatever that thing is. Right? We get into community rather than isolate. So we are no longer buffering, but we're now coping with the issue. And all that comes as we are dealing with the HEAT model. The COPE model is the way of dealing with those triggers and setting yourself up for success. Remember our 3 pillars for reversing diabetes. We decrease insulin, we suppress appetite, and we reduce sugar. If we do that, if we follow that path, follow that pattern, implement the tools that we're learning, walk down the New Year, New You pathway, then we get success as we move into this space. The other powerful tool that helps to hit all 3 of those pillars is this idea of balanced bites, how we fuel our body. We fuel our body with balanced foods. Every bite counts. And so if we are conscious of that we're using whole foods, we're prioritizing whole foods, we're minimizing processed foods, we are eating food without added sugar, lean protein, healthy fats, starchy and non-starchy vegetables, tasty and flavorful food, and portion controlled. If we do that, we're hitting all three of those pillars, and we are well on the way to reversing our diabetes. Also, when you come, make sure that you are joining in the challenges and you're practicing, you're training for what you need to be able to do during times when stress happens, when your buttons are pushed, when those triggers happen. If you've not trained, if you've not exercised, if you've not practiced, it makes it difficult in that moment to be able to overcome it. Okay, practice, 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 practice. When you come, tell your story. Let us know what successes you're having. Are you losing weight? Are you off medication? Is your blood pressure better? Have you had an A1C that's suppressed now, that's lower than it's been before? Are you in the Wonderland? You know what Wonderland is? Wonderland is where your weight is for the first time. I shouldn't for the first time. Where your weight is below 200. If you're in the 100s, right? Wonderland. And then invite a friend. Let someone know that there's a space where they can come, where they can go, where they can find community, people who are of like minds that are moving in the same direction that they want to be, and they can set themselves up for success by being here. So invite them over, bring them, right, and help them walk through the New Year, New You path. All those videos are there, and it's in the playlist called How to Reverse Diabetes. We've got the playlist that's called How to Fast Successfully. We've got the playlist on managing diabetes or mastering diabetes, right? So all of that information is there. You want to make sure that you are taking full advantage of all of it. Okay, I'm always excited when I'm in this space with you. We will do our check-ins tomorrow, and then again on Friday. And on Saturday will be video from the vault. This Week in Review will be Sunday morning at 6 a.m. Right here on Dwain Woode MD. And then we'll be back on Monday, right? We'll be back on Monday for our final show for this season on the 23rd, right? This is the 23rd, right? So next Monday, we'll be back in this space. And then after that, we'll be off for 2 weeks. So remember that, we'll be off for 2 weeks. And then we'll be back in January in the new season on the 6th of January. Will be our very first show. Yeah, so our last show for this season will be the 23rd. Tomorrow night is our community meetup at 7 o'clock, right? Well, not right here, but make sure you sign up with the link that is in the chat right now. Hey, this is Dr. Dwain Woode. That's Wood with an E. The E stands for endocrinology. I'm always excited when I'm here because I encourage you to take charge of your health and your life, avoid complications, and go to the next level and create the life you've always wanted. And we are building that because we educate, we empower, and we encourage. Thank you for being with us. We'll see you at our next show, and we'll see you tomorrow at our community meetup. Good night, everybody.